From Daniel Studios in Cincinnati, Ohio, it's the Dennis Daniel Show. Tonight's guest, voice actor Billy West. And your announcer, me, Belle Dandy. And now, here's your host. He is Cincinnati's next big radio personality, Mr. Dennis Daniel.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's the good old Double D, and you are tuned into the hottest talk show on blogtalkradio.com. I am talking, of course, of The Dennis Daniel Show. I am your host, not sure if voice actor talk show host or overly obsessive fanboy, Dennis Daniel. Folks, this is the first installment of The Dennis Daniel Show for 2013, which means only one thing. It's time to crank it up a notch. That's right, we are celebrating 5 years on the air with the All Taste Explosion, and we're going to push the envelope further than it's ever been pushed on this program. We're getting bigger guests, bigger names, and greater interviews than we could even talk about in just one episode. Because tonight on The Dennis Daniels Show, we have got iconic voice actor Billy West. Now, for those of you who don't know who Billy West is, we've put together a small demo reel of some of his better-known roles, so let's take a quick listen at what makes Billy West so incredible.
Dad, do I have a birthday?
You didn't have a birth, so technically, no. Oh, don't feel bad. We can celebrate the day I extracted you from the cloning tank, or the day I scraped your DNA from that growth on my back.
Oh, that one.
Ah, yes. It was 13 years ago next week. I used this very fork.
Oh, well, isn't that...
Look who's here, everyone! It's Zoidberg, the lovable tramp!
Since when are you performing at children's parties?
Performing? What? Please, if someone could spare me money to buy shoes...
Kif, I'm headed to the men's room and I'll be needing an attendant, so... Oh, I'm sorry. You're crying like a woman. It's all right. I've always thought of myself as a father figure to some of my more pathetic men.
Well, I'm in love with this girl.
That's rich.
All right, troops. It is for us to choose a battlefield that affords us...
Oh, I got it.
Yes, Private Porkster.
How about we challenge them to a spelling bee?
Say, we could have a bowling tournament.
Ren, you're angry? You turned tootin'! I'm angry! I have never been this angry in my entire life! Hey! I feel great! I love being angry! Thank you, Stimpy.
Happy to be of service?
I tell you what, those are some incredible roles, and of course, he's done so much more. And I am so excited that he's on the program tonight, so without further ado, let's get into this. Oh boy. Feeling excited here, kids. My guest tonight is a very distinguished voice actor who many know as Fry, Farnsworth, and Zoidberg, among many other characters on the hit Comedy Central animated series Futurama, which new episodes return later this summer. You also know him as Ren and Stimpy from the iconic Ren and Stimpy, and Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd from the hit animated live-action movie Space Jam. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, give it up for the one, the only, Mr. Billy West! Mr. West, thank you, and welcome to the Dennis Daniel Show.
Wow, you know what you forgot? Oh.
I love that
on the record scratching. What a long drum roll. Boy, do I appreciate that.
I wanted to do the Zoidberg. Is it Zoidberg?
Zoidberg.
Hey, need someone for a theme song? Why not Zoidberg?
Why not Zoidberg? For anything.
But this is a truly huge...
I'll eat the food from your stomach as soon as you die. You should be the hottest talk show guy if you're not. I love your enthusiasm, man. But do you really want to wind up like Jay Leno and stuff?
Well, I don't know. I have a normal-sized chin, and then again, you could end up like Letterman, with the whole hairpiece thing, or Conan, and have Andy Richter follow you for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I met Jay a few times. I was on his show a couple of times. I only met David Letterman once, but I can't imitate Letterman, but I used to do like Jay Leno. I don't know if you saw this in the paper today. The newspaper, it's got ink, and crossword puzzles. Yeah, I know what the newspaper is.
Yeah, big hand talking. It'll be a great time. Yeah, let's go. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this today. There's a woman like in Ohio or something. She has the sweetest ass in town. I guess she's been diagnosed with diabetes. Thank God I'm an atheist, huh, folks? We got a great show for you this evening.
Oh, gosh, man. We're not even 2 minutes into the show, and I'm dying. But, of course, again, you've been in all kinds of great stuff. I can remember my dad, waking us up on Saturday morning. This is like when we were like 5 or 6. To watch one show and one show low. That's Ren and Stimpy, of course, a very iconic cartoon from the 90s. But, of course, we'll get into that a little bit later on in the program.
Sure.
So what got you interested in acting?
Well, I think kids are natural actors because they don't know much. All they've got is their imagination. And that's pretty much what an actor, does. I mean, they rely on their imagination. They create fictional scenarios in their head, and they're able to comment on them according to their observations. And what they're doing is they're creating stuff that didn't exist before they just created it. I love that process. I was always like that when I was a kid. I wanted to play music really bad. Anything I thought was cool had to do with like music and sonic observations. Like my world was a sonic world, less visual, but I was really sensitive to sounds and the way people talked and noises and stuff. I was always running around Touretting out voices and noises, and people would be like, "Can you not do that?"
Not do it. That's one of the best things that you can do out there if you've got the gift. Use it. I mean,
I know. Too bad this isn't like that play Our Town where you could just go back there and go, "I'll have you know that I make a lot of money for screwing around, and you're telling me not to do it."
I believe the technical term is "suck it."
Yeah, right.
Yes, well, look at you now. You're one of the most prestigious and established voice actors in the industry today, and you've done all this great work. And it's no, I'm not trying to brown nose. I'm being dead honest here. You've been in some great shows that have just stood the test of time, and of course, we're getting into one of those right now. One of your earliest known roles is both Ren Hoek and Stimpson J. Cat from the iconic Ren and Stimpy animated series. One of the first big cartoons on Nickelodeon in the 90s. So what was it like working on such a groundbreaking show, and how did you develop the voices for Ren and Stimpy?
Well, you never know that you're doing some kind of cultural phenomenon or that you're involved with some sort of crazy thing that's going to, level everybody while you're doing it. There's no way you can know. You just know if you're having fun or not. I get drawings sent to me. I lived in New York, and John Crisfalusi lived out here in Hollywood, actually. And I worked with him on a show called Beanie and Cecil. It was a redo of a 1960s cartoon show. And it was a big, lovable sea serpent, and he would go, "I'm coming to save you, Beanie Boy." And then that got canceled. And what happened was John Kay remembered me from that encounter, and he sent me a couple of drawings of these characters he was working on, new characters. And, and he always remembered that I did an impression of Larry Fine, and he loved it, and so he wanted me to do that kind of voice, only amped up, more childlike, more cartoony. And originally, he wanted me to do the voice of Ren, and I auditioned. Actually, I did a tape in a closet over at MTV, and it was like an audition tape, and he was going in to sell the show to play the tape of what we had just done in a broom closet because there was no recording studio available to us. And, the descriptions were like a Peter Lorre type asthma hound chihuahua, quintessential a-hole, not mostly negative things, and then sometimes morphing into like a Kirk Douglas or Burl Ives, that kind of stuff. And whatever it is I did sold the show because he said, congratulations, what you just did sold the show. But he decided that he probably was going to do it all along, was the Ren voice. So I didn't do it in the first season, part of the second season. I did both of them for the rest of the run. But, I mean, Stimpy was just kind of a brain-dead cat that, was sensitive and overjoyed. Real childlike, Hey, Ren, will you button me? Will you shut up, you fool? Yes, I shall kill you. And it was sort of a comedy team from hell, like Salvatore Dali meets Pee-wee's Playhouse or something. They used to describe it like that.
Well, I don't know what it was, but it became a success. And, you just brought those two characters to life. And one thing that I remember is Ren's maniacal laugh, and it was just so psychotic, but it was funny. My dad would actually try to do the laugh. Of course, he couldn't do it, but it'd still be worth a hoot to watch. And of course, that show was just simply beautiful, and I think a lot of the cartoons nowadays should go back to that kind of style. Of course, with standards then, and we were talking with Tom Kinney about this last month because he worked on Rocko's Modern Life, and there was so much you could get away with in the 90s that you could never, ever get away with today, and that's a real shame. Yeah, I don't get it. We're supposed to evolve and become more open-minded, and what happened was all of a sudden we just started to tighten up everything, and originally, like Ren and Stimpy was all bringing back the original kinds of things that made cartoons fun. And what you saw was a second chance at reviving that old spirit. So you would love the old stuff, real old stuff, from the 40s and 50s. Yes, and 60s, actually. Well, yeah, well, the 60s. But, today, I don't know what, I see, like, cartoons that have artwork that looks like children's refrigerator drawings, like refrigerator art. And the producers themselves want to do the voices, or the creators, and it's like, hey, Jim, how you doing? Oh, I'm okay. What? That kind of stuff. Tom Kenny, who's one of my best friends, we always talk this stuff that we get called upon to do stuff that's so out of whack and out of range for most people, and you got to be just willing to throw yourself on the line and just, tackle it. There was a little bit of resent for, like, actors and actresses coming in doing voices because they don't bring anything to it except who and what they are, mostly. They don't, like, disembody themselves and become a totally different sonic creation because they just don't have the ability. It's like alchemy. For a cartoon character to work, there has to be alchemy. Something's got to change drastically depending on the cartoon character. It cannot be you. It can't think like you. It doesn't have your history. It's just a total brand new thing that people, you hope people will believe it, that there's some truth in it somehow in your performance. And, they call me and Tommy and Jim Cummings and Jess Harnell, Maurice LaMarche, John DiMaggio, everybody I know and they go, okay, you see that lead bar on the table? We need you to turn it into gold. And that's what you do. And when you leave, that lead bar is gold. I think when, actors, stage and screen actors or whatever come in to do a voice, the bar is still lead, in my opinion, when they leave the room.
There was no alchemy, there was no magic, nothing. You know, I mean, that's a huge element to me, and it sort of invalidates what we do for a living. And I'm not trying to sound like, you know, like Dick Cheney, like angry about everything, like an old geezer. But it's a craft. It was an art, and I just hate to see it go bye-bye.
Yeah, well, if I can say one thing, you don't turn into gold, you turn into freaking diamonds. I gotta say that. And I bet you were pretty ticked off when you heard Chris Rock talking about, you know, I just get behind a microphone and just be me and just do what I do. And I'm watching this. I'm like, what? You know, no. That's not what voice acting is. You got guys like Tom Kenny and Billy West and Eric Stewart who are pouring their heart and soul into this to make characters that we remember, and you're voicing a zebra. This coming from a guy who in the 80s did The Dark Side with Nat X, and that was a character. You know, he's kind of forgetting that. I think he's forgetting that aspect of acting.
Well, I think a lot of comics think that they're like romantic leads that should be, you know, the romantic interest in a movie and don't want to do comedy. The whole thing about him doing voices, you know, I don't care what he does, actually. I mean, I wish him all the luck in the world, which I do everybody. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, that they shouldn't be doing anything. That's just my opinion of the whole situation. But when he said that, everybody else that I know got bent out of shape. But, you know, I mean, he's in show business, and, you know, you need something to say when you show up somewhere, and that's what he said. I don't know if he feels that way personally or not, because, you know, everything's kind of a front in show business.
Well, it just sounds like, you know, that was kind of like a middle finger to all the voice actors who pour their heart and soul into their talent and don't make
I don't know, Dennis Daniels, you're pretty sensitive.
Hey, I'm not sensitive. I'm just saying, you know.
I know. You're protective of me, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, you guys don't make the 8-figure salaries for the movies that these guys make.
Oh, believe me, I've seen them come rolling down from Mount Olympus or wherever they live, and they breeze into the studio and, you know, spend less than 2 weeks doing some kind of animated feature, and it's like, okay, where's my $30 million?
And what I love the most is that when that movie gets an animated spin-off series, it's usually you guys coming in to do the voices and not them.
Yeah, because there's no money in it for them then.
Yes, I don't get how, you know, Osmosis Jones, starring Chris Rock, when he gets turned over to Ozzy and Drix, you know, they get Phil Lamar, who, by the way, is an awesome voice actor, by the way.
Oh, yeah, they're all my favorites. You have no idea how, in what high esteem I hold the voice people that I know.
Yes,
and there are people that I don't know, but I like their work. I love their work.
Yes, but I don't see how they make remotely less than the guy that they're trying to bring in. And that's really an insult, you know, because you're doing the same thing that they're doing, but, you know, it just seems to me like it's an injustice in the world. But then again, you know, I guess you have to, I guess that's kind of how the world works nowadays.
I don't know. If you're going to do a sound alike, the producers can always go, look, he wants all this money, but like guys like him, I can find 100 guys in town that can do Chris Rock. That's what they're likely to say, you know, and so they don't understand why we're, you know, gnashing our teeth or something, which we're really not. I mean, I don't want to see the craft go away. I want to know that there's a 19-year-old firebrand out there that no one's ever heard or seen that could have the opportunity to walk in and blow the doors off of a recording studio. To me, that's the romanticized version of what I always thought, like a Mel Blanc, you know. He banged on the door over and over and over again at Warner Brothers. Listen, I just want to show you what I can do. And they were like, we got all the voice people we need. Meanwhile, they had a couple of, you know, schlubs that, you know, they were unimpressive, to say the least. But, you know, he kept going there. And one day he went in, and just because he had that chance, he blew them out of their seats. Just, you know, he tore the building down just by going through his antics and his characters. And to me, that's magic, you know?
Yeah. It's actually a great transit. BlogTalkRadio.com. This is the Dennis Daniels Show. We've got voice actor Billy West on the air, and he just gives us a great transition into our next question. You're also known as the voice of Bugs Bunny and Elmer Fudd in the live-action animated movie Space Jam, which starred Michael Jordan. What was it like working on the movie and playing one of the biggest cartoon icons of all time?
I was kind of nervous. I mean, I did audition like everybody else did, and I was surprised that I got the role. But I came in and did the audition for Ivan Reitman, and I was willing to ruin my voice for a good performance. In other words, they had Bugs screaming something to Michael Jordan, and I just let it fly. And I think he was impressed with my willingness to just destroy myself for art, or whatever you want to call it.
You know, and I got to work with Michael Jordan, Doc, the closest thing to a religious figure that we have.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, and I did that for about 10 years. But the thing is, there's always been different guys doing Bugs. You know, I can't lay claim to that character. That character is yours for the day. You know, if you're a day player or a hired voice guy, you know, they can always, like, get someone else if they don't like what you're doing. And it's like I don't think any voice person owns it, because the best work was created before any of us were born. I don't do Bugs now, but my friend Jeff Bergman, who's a brilliant Mel Blanc technician and voice guy, he's doing Bugs now for a Warner Brothers series, and I wound up doing Elmer Fudd. To me, Elmer Fudd was just hysterically funny, because he's like an 8-year-old with a gun, you know, and the hat with flaps on it, and he's like a little kid. He's like, shh, be very, very quiet. I'm hunting rabbits. You know, and then he goes from, like, being 8 years old to, like, turning into Psycho Man, you know. All right, say your prayers, rabbit. Come out of that hole.
You got me, Doc. Things are getting dark. I think I'm going to kick the bucket. Away! The rabbit kicked the bucket.
The rabbit
kicked the bucket. The bucket kicked the rabbit. The rabbit kicked the bucket.
The bucket kicked the rabbit. The rabbit kicked the rabbit.
Yeah, I had to finish the scene. That's how it went in one of the old cartoons. But Elmer Fudd, you know, to me, he's hysterical. I think that you ever see that guy? He's on YouTube. Just look up Arthur Q. Bryan. And he sort of really sounds like that in real life. You know, he's on YouTube, and he's doing like some monologue from a 1930s short subject, probably some 10 or 5-minute film. And he's just sitting there talking to you, telling a story. You know, and I just love it. I love it.
Yes, well,
I've always been in love with periphery and freak stuff and just, you know, off the nose.
Now you're doing Elmer Fudd on the new Looney Tunes show, and you know, he's not shown a lot on there. I mean, I thought the Grilled Cheese music video or the Merry Melody was just perfect. It was just...
Oh, thanks.
Gosh.
Thank you very much. I kind of had to struggle over that because there's like melodies in that song and nuances that you know, Arthur Q. Bryan never did. You can only go by what you heard him do, and now all of a sudden he's like Barry White, and that was kind of a challenge, but I loved it.
I think it was simply perfection. I suck, I know, I can't do it. But anyway...
Don't make fun of my lateral wisp.
Why would I do that? I'm sorry. Okay, anyway, speaking of all of the freak stuff, that translates into our next question. Your best-known current roles are Philip J. Fry, Professor Farnsworth, and Dr. Zoidberg from the hit series Futurama, which, by the way, new episodes return this summer to Comedy Central. So what is it like working on that show, and what do you think of your main character, Fry?
I absolutely love working on that show. I loved when we started. I think we did our first table read in 1998. So we've been on forever, but it just doesn't seem like that. And every time the show got renewed, we were just so happy because we love working together. Everybody is so talented and so funny. I go to school when I'm watching people like Tress MacNeille and Johnny and Phil and Dave Herman, who you don't hear much about, is incredible. I mean, at table reads, they'll give him some character that he does Scruffy the janitor. But at table reads, they'll give him various characters that are just like one-offs, and he can kill you with one word as the character. And, I mean, we just fall down laughing hysterically. He just has that knack. Maurice LaMarche is like this treasure trove of voices. Katie Seagal is a musician like I am or was, and I went to see her sing one night, and I was practically crying. She was so good, so beautiful, and she gets to do a lot of singing in the show, and I love her voice. It's just kind of big, and it fills the entire screen. My roles on it, the Philip J. Fry voice, when I went to audition, they said, Matt Groening wants you to audition for his new show, and, I said, I don't know if he knows who I am. He goes, he knows who you are. And I said, well, tell him I kind of know who he is, too. And went over there and just let it fly. Philip J. Fry was based on my own voice, which seems to pop in and out now and then when I get excited, when I was 25.
I was 13 and I got my working papers.
That's perfect.
And, shut up and take my money. I was always like kind of inert, and then all of a sudden I'd get mad over nothing. I guess that goes with being, I don't know, what was I, clinically depressed. I find out at 50 years old that I had lived my whole life being like chronic low-level depression. And you don't know it because, it never occurs to you. You're just so busy doing crazy stuff. And I suppose that was to avoid the way I felt personally about anything. I remember never really being happy. The only thing that brought me any kind of joy was performing. The Professor was based on odd assortments of wizards and old doddering men, kind of an amalgam. And, he'd be saying, like, good news, everyone, bad news. I was going to what? Just sort of doddering. He's 147 years old, and he's got skin wrapped around him. He looks like, I always thought he looked like airplane food,
Yeah, what's the deal with that?
Diseased piece of chicken they give you with skin wrapped around it, the bone.
Maybe we should change the joke from what's the deal with airline food to what's the deal with Hubert J. Farnsworth.
I know. Ever notice everything? Him as a stand-up comedian would be funny.
I don't know. With his bone structure, kind of be hard to stand up. More like a stand-up, crack, fall over.
There you go.
And of course, the piece of resistance of Futurama, of course, Zoidberg, which everyone loves.
Zoidberg is researchable. He's sort of a fusion between a couple of, Borscht Belt Yiddish theater burlesque comics. One was named Lou Jacoby, and the other was George Jessel. And they're both on YouTube, if you look up their names. And they both, what I loved about the two of those guys, even when I was a kid, was they were like marble mouth guys. Like, I'm telling you, if you don't listen to me, I don't care if you take my advice or not, but you're going to get right. And I just love that so much, and the Yiddishisms. And I remember when I was a kid, I loved those because I used to hear them all the time when I was growing up. I'd be in like a department store basement just looking for something for my girlfriend, and they'd be having some crazy sale, and I'd be looking around, but it'd be all frantic women tearing apart the bins and the clothing and like a frenzy. And I saw this beautiful girl out of all the old biddies in there. I was so busy looking at her as she walked by, I smacked into a beam, that supported the entire building. This was the basement.
I know that's.
And all of a sudden, this woman came by, and she looked at me, and she went, "With it, you're going steady." And I just love stuff like that. And Zoidberg has a lot of those. But if you cross him with George Jessel, he sounds like this, or Myron Cohen. You could listen to that guy too. Young lady, bring me a sandwich from the dumpster and leave the maggots on it.
I love the curly in there, though. Whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah, that comes from the Three Stooges. Everything I do has some roots in the Stooges. To me, those guys were saints. Like on Mount Rushmore, I don't know. I'm disappointed that it was never like Moe, Larry, and Curly and Shemp.
I know.
Forget about Joe Besser. Forget about Joe DeRita.
Yeah. Hey, Moe! Whoop, 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 whoop.
Yeah.
Well,
hey, Moe, I pissed on my shoe. What's the matter with you? No.
Gosh, why do I not have the sound effects on this on the server? Man, that'd be perfect.
Oh, you don't need them.
Oh. So, speaking of the Three Stooges, I want to know, what did you think of the movie they released last year? You know, I thought it was funny as hell.
Oh, there were people that just hated it, but it was very hard to come up with a reason to make that movie, and so what it became, in my opinion, is just this very loving tribute to those guys. I was a consultant on that movie, by the way.
Oh, cool.
And I had to teach Sean Hayes everything about Larry Fine. And it was the craziest thing because we were watching episodes, and I said, you see how he did this? He's so subtle, and look at this little move here and everything. And he was like an open book. He was like a sponge, and he just was perfect as Larry. I mean, it was as close as anybody I've ever heard, and he had the nuances and everything. The Moe I never met, but he was hysterical, and he was scary as Moe. I mean, it was like an illusion that you bought. Will Sasso I got to speak to on Skype, telling him a few things about Curly, how, you know, he says, tell me something I don't know about Curly. I said, here's something you probably don't know, is when he was 13, he shot himself in the foot, which is such a stooge thing to do.
That would explain a lot.
Yeah, and whenever you see him, when Moe and Larry take off out of the frame, Moe will whistle and Curly's like slow, and he got to turn around and chase after them. If he's running or trotting, he does it with a limp because he shot himself in the foot.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, you can watch
it
just
again.
like I don't know, it's just fun to go back and see all these things that are verifiable.
You know, I love the Three Stooges. You know, they were funny. But this generation just doesn't seem to get it. A week before the movie came out, they decided to put the Three Stooges on Monday Night Raw, and guess what the audience did? They booed them. Yeah? They booed the Three Stooges. I'm like,
yeah.
Like what? They were doing some classic slapstick with a guy named Santino Marella, and I was laughing. I was holding my side because it was so funny. And these guys, it was a Washington D.C. crowd, so obviously they were dead. It was a dead crowd. Maybe the wrong audience, the wrong target. I thought.
You know what it is? It's like nobody's bad or good. The audience isn't the villain, and the performers don't stink. It's just a bad fit.
In the end.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, in the end, Will Sasso got chokeslammed by a guy named Kane, so I guess I guess WWE and slapstick comedy, you know, just aren't, it's like trying to plug a American Lamp into a European outlet. No connection.
Yeah, right.
It doesn't fit. But, you know, I thought it was great. I thought it was
you know, I loved the movie just because it was the Stooges, and I was happy to be involved in it in the little way that I was. I knew it was going to be so super hard to come up with like a reason to make the movie, other than that the people that did it purely did it out of the love of those three guys and their comedy. You know, that kind of thing. But I love all the guys that would go, "Where are those three new men?" There'd always be like some voice of authority.
And then you zoom over and you see it's the Stooges. It's like you don't know it's them, but then you know.
Yep.
They're the only guys
they're not for everybody. I mean, nowadays, but I've seen so many instances where they'll show one at an old theater, you know, be a revival, and I'll see old people and their parents. I'll see guys that are my age. I'll see younger guys in their 40s and 30s, and I see kids, and they are all like totally on the same page, watching and laughing hysterically.
I guess it's for a rare breed, Mr. West. That, you know.
Yeah, I guess
it's just.
I guess we all have our influences. I mean, my biggest influences were comedians that did characters like Sid Caesar and Jonathan Winters. Those guys used to fracture me. I saw shows aired in the 1950s. And I saw it in real time when I was a little kid. And my mom would let me stay up to watch this crazy man Sid Caesar, and I got to meet him finally after all these years. And when you meet your idol, your knees are just knocking. Happened a few times. Les Paul, Jeff Beck. Oh, God, I could go on.
I know, I could go on, too. But anyway, let's wrap the interview up. Are there any new shows or projects that you're working on that you can tell us about?
I'm a little resentful because you forgot to ask me about Zap Brannigan.
I know, Zap, but we only have half an hour. We'll have to have you back on during the Summer of Biggerness 3 to
yeah, we could do that.
Yes,
we could do that
because we got to talk about Zap Brannigan, the world's greatest lover.
She's a beautiful ship, all right. I'm gonna fly her brains out.
That's what she said.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Of course, I also loved Richard Nixon's head, and just when you say Agnew.
Agnew. That was the reason I chose to do Nixon like that, which it doesn't sound like him really at all if you listen to him. But when I was a kid, I was watching the debates between John Kennedy and Richard Nixon, and Nixon was losing bad. And first of all, he looked terrible on television. He was sweaty, and Kennedy's face was perfect. He had those ultra bright smile and the buttered toast hair. He was made for TV. And Nixon, when I looked at him, he was going through these weird little changes, like he started to get 5 o'clock shadow. And I said to my Mom, I think he's going to turn into a werewolf. Because he looked like something was going on with him, and I remembered that, and I was always thinking, Arroo! Which is probably what he would say if he was turning into a werewolf. Yeah. I'll have nothing to do with those filthy hippies. Arroo!
Yeah, if he looked bad on TV in that standard, imagine seeing him in HD. He'd be like, Lord in heaven almighty, it's the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah, honest to God. It was just, I don't know. I was lucky enough to catch a lot of the old days stuff and have it influence me to this day, even though I'm kind of a progressive. But I love the craft I do. I'm in love with it. I respect it, and I have passion for it, which I never lost. And I know, believe me, I meet them. There's kids out there that they were inspired by what me and the other guys do and the other ladies that are doing voices do. And it means the world to them. And to me, that gives me heart that they're going to keep coming and they're going to, not go away.
It's so amazing that just the new generation of voice actors that are trying to get their mark in there. On our show, we regularly feature skits with up-and-coming voice actors, depending on the guests we have. Our announcer, Belle Dandy, is a girl who wants to be a voice actor herself. So we're like, we're going to have her voice actors on. Why not give Dennis a permanent announcer who's a goddess? I'm like, sign me up. Awesome. So now I have a goddess as my announcer for life. And and the best part, you don't got to pay goddesses. But, I think the new generation, and with such advances with YouTube and SoundCloud, a new generation is being found, and they're bringing people in from YouTube to, start doing these. And maybe, just maybe, in the near future, you'll get a chance to work with some of the big names that are on YouTube.
Well, I know what it feels like. I mean, one day I went from 0 to 60. It just kind of happened, and I found myself walking into a room with guys I heard when I was a kid. And I thought, oh my God, and they're almost looking at you like with open arms, like we've been saving a seat for you. That's how I felt.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Tear in the eye there. But okay, but anyway, like I said, are there any new projects or shows you're working on that you can tell us about?
Well, I can tell you that this Sunday I have a commercial in the Super Bowl.
Yes, because you're the Red M&M.
The Red M&M. Have you ever eaten me?
Yes. See, I see what you did there.
Yeah, right. But the commercial is hysterically funny. I'm not going to give it away, but believe me, it's in the first quarter, so no matter what happens during the game, you'll probably see it.
That's got to be cool, though. You are the voice of the Red freaking M&M, and you've been doing this for a while now. And you're an iconic figure in television, and now your voice is going to be heard in one of the biggest advertising nights of the year. I mean, a 1-minute promo alone in this year's Super Bowl runs you $8 million. So, I mean, if anyone doubts the supreme voice acting ability of William West, Well, just watch no further than this Sunday's Super Bowl.
I appreciate it, but I have to tell you something. When it gets to that point where your voice seems to be everywhere, I talk to the other guys about this when they hear themselves when they turn on the radio, doing commercials or TV. It's sort of surreal. I ask them if they feel the same way, and they do. It's like they have to compartmentalize to enjoy it, because if they listen to it as themselves with that critical eye for performance, you'll get self-conscious. You'll say, oh, my God, I can't believe they let that out. You know, like, oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. So you have to pretend to be somebody else and be totally totally non-judgmental, which is, it's just surreal when you hear your stuff everywhere. And, there's a lot of, I'm very lucky as well, that I was able to do the things I'm doing because, for a while there in cartoons, if you heard a gang of people, there'd be 25 names in the credits as people who did voices. But, now it's getting back to like there's 4 people creating heavens and hells and universes out of nothing. So,
well, hey, you are one of those big entities doing that, and I got to say,
thank you.
This is truly awesome. Our final question, and we ask this for all our voice actors. Our audience is mainly, vocal majors, theater majors, drama majors, people who want to get their start in the voice acting industry. Do you have any advice for those who want to pursue a career just like yours?
I think you just have to be. I know that having OCD since I was a kid helped. It kept me on that. Like, I wouldn't leave that. It was always part of me. I was a musician for many, many years, made my living, but, I would always wind up screwing around on stage doing voices and stuff, and I sort of didn't take it seriously because I wanted to be the best guitar player in the world. You know what I mean? But it was always there, and it never went away, and I thought one day, you know what, I'm going to really, really try. And what I did was, somebody had a radio contest, some station, WBCN, as a matter of fact, in Boston. They no longer exist, and they said, they had a contest to see if you sound like Mel Blanc. And I got on, and I did my whole bit and everything, and they invited me to come in, and it led to a job just kind of creating stuff for no pay. But then there was a producer opening, and so suddenly there's no producer school, so I had to learn to run a board and splice tape and all those old-fashioned things and create my own stuff out of nothing and edit it, get it on the air. To me, that was like a playground. You know what I mean? You felt like you could just do anything you felt like as long as you were good and you were committed to it. And I would suggest if there's people that want to just, they do voices, so you got to find a place to do them. And one of them is a local radio station. They've always got like 2 guys in the morning on every show, the Wacky Morning Show, and women. And a lot of times they need a person to do voices, and so you might want to have a chat with a program director at a station and say, listen, I do characters and stuff. Maybe you want to, hear it. Can I send you a tape? Or, will you let me come in and give me a listen? But you can't just sit there and let stuff, fall on you serendipitously. You do have to kind of shake it up a little out there.
Hey.
And don't depend on your friends to tell you if you're any good or not, because I had people that were my friends that they'd be so freaked out that you could do these things, they would not acknowledge it whatsoever. And I used to feel so hurt by that, and I used to begin to feel like, well, this means nothing. It's just a parlor trick, because they'd be like, yeah, that's okay, it's all right.
Yes, I understand.
And you got to totally forget that that's happening, because that's how people treat people who have some whacked out special talent,
Well, unfortunately, Mr. West, we are officially out of time for the Dennis Daniels Show for this week. Guys, check out Futurama. It airs weeknights on Comedy Central. And, of course, you can check out the Looney Tunes Show on Cartoon Network every night. Mr. West, thank you so much for being on this show. This is truly a huge honor.
Oh, my gosh. You know what? I really appreciate it, and I had a lot of fun doing it, and I'm glad we got to chat a little.
Okay, well, we're going to see you guys down the road. Until next time, this is Dennis Daniel Show saying, I don't want to live on this planet anymore.
And as a final word, mwah, goodbye.